Okay, this is first time I have one of these calls or these conferences outside of the metaverse. My name is Esteban Ordano. I'm the co-founder of a project called Decentraland. It's a virtual world, and it's really decentralized. And I'm going to talk about DAOs. So first, a quick show of hands. Who here knows what a DAO is? Okay. Well, that's a lot better than I expected. And has any one of you participated in a DAO? Okay. That's a lot more than I expected. So, okay. DAOs mean decentralized autonomous organizations. And I'm going to first be talking a little bit about what they mean to me. What are the different levels of automatization, the different things a DAO can actually do? Then some details about how voting power and decisions are delegated, and how those decisions can be specialized, and how to organize an organization, organize a DAO. And lastly, some opportunities and challenges of decentralized autonomous organizations. I'm going to say DAO from now on. So first, introduction to the DAOs. To me, it's key to start with the O. Like, the O in DAO means organizations. We already have some examples of organizations, either public or private. The executive power, churches, courts, and education, schools, and also private, also private organizations. Sorry, and NGOs, but you could see NGOs as somewhat in between the public and private organization. And DAOs are a different kind of thing. They are a different monster. They are not a public organization, and they are not a private organization. It's just a different technology to automate how this works. So all organizations have two key functions, in my view. The first one is to decide on things, which I'm going to call governance. And the second one is how to execute, how to enact those decisions. This is true for the public sector. This is true for the private sector. Change the CEO, change the president. All of those decisions are then enacted and executed. So what about the other two letters? The D means decentralized. To me, decentralized means that there's no support, there's no company that attends the telephone. The A is for autonomous, which means that it exists in the real world in some way or another. And I'm going to give you an example so that you can relate to this, which is the internet. Like, there's no single company that is called the internet. You cannot call this company and shut it down. I know there are a few countries that try to do that, but with little to no effect. And then you also have Bitcoins and blockchains. I'm not going to go into detail here so I don't lose you, because the part that I am going to talk about is smart contracts on Ethereum, which can be smart contracts which can be decentralized autonomous organizations and can automatically execute things and provide the tools for decisions to be taken. So from now on, I'm going to refer to DAOs interchangeably with decentralized autonomous organizations, because smart contracts on Ethereum are the easiest way to create a DAO. So DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. And the first aspect of it, how to decide on things, its governance, can be created with N of M voting. For example, the Supreme Court in the United States, like you need to have at least half there. That's 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 7 or 5 out of 9 have to agree on a decision for it to be actual. You also can have tokens to distinguish the weight of every person's voting decision and power decision, like as you would have on any corporation. Like the strength of the shareholder is based on how many shares do they hold. And you can also create a mixed governance mechanism, like for example, the legislative power can decide something, but it gets rejected by the judicial power and that balance of things. Or maybe one of the 3 votes that you need is another DAO inside of a DAO. But anyways, that's how you decide things. Now, I'm going to talk about how to execute on things, because all of this is too abstract, and it's going to get a little bit more abstract as well, because Ethereum smart contracts, DAOs, can be seen as programs that get automatically executed. So smart contracts on Ethereum can have money, smart contracts on Ethereum can interact with each other, and they have a certain set of rules that they have to obey. So whenever we have a DAO and the members of this DAO decide to vote to invest, maybe to buy a token and sell a token, and you reach a threshold of the amount of people that need to vote that, then you have an execution automatically on the Ethereum blockchain. There's a protocol called Uniswap, and that's similar to an automated Forex thing. And then, well, this DAO had a balance of so many Ether, and they decided to sell 100 Ether and buy a certain amount of tokens. So we're talking about levels of automatization. First, you have on-chain actions, which are executed immediately. So you don't have a problem between governance and execution. There are some things where you could have a failure between governance and execution. And this is the gradient that I want to show. Another thing that we can have is a vote to maybe govern certain thing about some software that everybody uses. Like, for example, which is your default home page the first time you install Windows or something like that. But this is a little bit too technical. I won't go into detail. The other things are off-chain decisions, things that your DAO, let's say that you have an investment fund in the shape of a DAO on Ethereum, and you want to invest on a startup. But you cannot invest on a startup because you don't have a judicial figure. You cannot enact things in reality. So because you cannot do that, some of the members of the DAO maybe acts as a proxy. They will go and put the money into the startup that they wanted. But you have a breakage between the governance and the execution of this. Like you decided on something, but the execution doesn't depend on the DAO itself. The execution depends on something else, and it's too abstract, or it's not actually enforceable. And lastly, for example, there is a DAO that governs Decentraland, and certain decisions that the DAO takes they are related to, like, maybe what if we could have it be always sunny in Decentraland, or what if we decide to add voice chat or something like that? Well, Those are product definitions which are somehow unenforceable. They are impossible for this program, this dumb program, which is a smart contract, to do things. Anyways, to summarize what I just said, you have on-chain actions. Those are fully automated, and the performance of those actions can be automatically tested. They could be evaluated. You can make mathematical decisions based on those fully automated things, because there's no breakage between governance and execution. Then you have, on the other end of the spectrum, an auditable performance, things that you cannot automatically say, oh, this is a good piece of art, or this is something that we should do, or this happened. Anyways, back to how DAOs work. I'm going to take the Decentraland as an example of this, of how complex you can make a DAO. In the Decentraland, you have virtual plots of lands, you have mana, which is the currency, you have names, and you have like virtual wearables. We should make a vote in the DAO to change that wearables for where, so that my TOC is, anyways. But it's going to be an auditable choice. So the community weighted vote, according to how many mana, according to how many land you have, gives you a certain voting power. And with that voting power, all the actors decide on different things. And something really interesting about this is that you can delegate your vote to someone else. So you can do liquid democracy. If you don't want to be on top of all the decisions that are being taken by the DAO, you can just delegate your vote to somebody else and let somebody take the decisions for you. And then we also have a specialization, because sometimes the DAO members don't know how to charge something. For example, in the case of wearables, they're clothes that people can use. Whenever someone submits a wearable, that doesn't go through the whole wearable, through the whole DAO. There is just one committee of people that decide whether this wearable should be accepted or not. So that's a specialization. In some sense, it's another way of delegating power to somebody else. There are other specializations inside the community of the Decentraland, like the security committee, like a group of people that are watching the smart contracts, making sure that everything's running smoothly. Now we have a governance squad, which is a group of people that are improving the application to decide on things on the Decentraland. And we recently got a new proposal accepted to fund a group of people to track the progress of all the different grants that the DAO was doing. So they will be like auditing what is happening with those decisions, whether the performance of those grants were efficient or not. And the DAO, the members of the community, can add or remove members of all of these squads or committees. And yeah, that's how this virtual organization becomes real and how they decide and act on things. Lastly, some opportunities and challenges that we see with DAOs, and this is going to be like super forward thinking. I think it adds a lot of transparency. It could be really good for many governmental processes. It could be good for auditing to check on the actual enforcement of rules and of the rule of law. But maybe it's a little bit too transparent. We shouldn't allow these things to lose the humanity and to lose the opportunity for having dissent or the opportunity to fix some rule that we previously put that wasn't that good as we thought. And lastly, who watches the watchers? How do we change the DAO itself? Like, how do you decide to change the constitution, or how do you decide to create a different way to govern whatever it is that the DAO was governing? So anyways, thank you for listening. I hope I didn't lose at least half of you. And I'll be in the hall if you have any further questions. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.